Hi, everyone. It's Dr. Macedonia. I just wanted to hop on here and provide a little bit of guidance in terms of your matrix for week 3. I've gotten a lot of feedback just about some of you that have been really nervous and just wanting to make sure that what you have gotten is accurate or correct. So I wanted to provide you a practical example of what this actually looks like in practice, just so that you know that the skills that you're actually utilizing now are skills that you're going to be utilizing not just through this program, but also as you continue as practitioners and researchers. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen with you. And what you see here is, I'm going to just stop my video for a second so I'm not distracted. Is a summary table. So just recently, I was on a research project with some folks from George Mason, and we conducted a systematic literature review investigating perceptions of teachers, educating students with disabilities, and looking at which factors have been explored in relation to finding success in both the profession and to what extent the factors are roles of teaching or context specific. So I actually created this table. And when we're doing a systematic literature review, it's a little bit more in depth than the literature review that you're going to do in this course. But you see that I have the citation and then just some different categories up top. So I included the sample, the method. So it's not only saying whether it's qualitative, quantitative, or mixed methods, but also what the authors actually utilized. So for example, for Blair 2008, it was qualitative and they utilized narrative inquiry. I also included the purpose. So some articles have stated the purpose, whereas some actually wrote their actual research questions, author key findings, and author key implications. Now, this is not something that you have to do, but this is definitely one way that you can approach it. So during the systematic literature review, I believe this is 23 sources that we conducted. So this is a lot of research. So what we ended up doing was, once I created this table, so where exactly you guys are, you are creating this table. So what I actually did next after creating this table is I went through the author key findings and actually open coded and really looked at the results section and classified the data in keywords and categories. So I went back, and what I ended up doing was I went in and I used colors when I was going through this in order to really start categorizing key findings of all of the research that I had. So what I actually did is, you also see that these are also colors as well. So you'll see yellow, green, and blue. So when you're looking at research as a whole, you want to be able to kind of look at research like as a whole picture. So not just findings, but you also want to be able to look at the samples and the methods, because again, this could communicate to you where those limitations and gaps are. So just to give you an example, when I highlighted in yellow, that means that the sample was only looking at general education teachers. Whereas if I have articles that were in green, that means that they included special education teachers and general education teachers, as well as different other sample, including supervisors, administrators, etc. And blue was just special education teachers. So as a whole, this is really telling me a lot in terms of how many articles looked at only general ed versus only special ed versus, a mix of everything. So what you're eventually going to do with your matrices is that hopefully by looking at all of this information, you're going to be able to look at specific themes within your literature. So I want to be able to show you what we actually did in terms of themes. So when I went into this document, what I ended up doing after I color coded it was I found some of these commonalities in terms of factors. Because again, the whole point of our literature review was to investigate perceptions of teachers teaching students with disabilities and the factors that were really important for that. So some of the common results that I kept coming up was, for example, how important it was for there to be administrative support. So for example, out of my 23 articles, 9 articles covered administrative support. So not only was I identifying these common themes, but I was also utilizing frequency counts to be able to say, this was a major theme, this is how many articles talked about that. And you see, obviously, there were multiple individuals working on this, which helped to strengthen our inter-rater reliability, but you don't have to worry about that for this assignment. I just wanted to show you what this actually looks like. So eventually, you're going to have these themes that you're going to identify within your research, and these themes are going to be what you're going to be writing about within your literature review. So I do want to just show you kind of like what that looks like a little bit in terms of your manuscript. So eventually your literature review is going to be a document that's going to look at your research as a big picture. So you're going to be presenting the strengths, and you're going to be presenting major themes, as well as what the limitations are. So this was our systematic literature review. So I'm going to go ahead and go down to findings. So I apologize for scrolling so much. So in your results section, this is where you're really going to be talking about the research as a whole. So you're going to be talking about things like, you know, how many articles were qualitative, how many were quantitative, for example. And then we go down into these factors. So these factors were coming specifically from this frequency distribution coding that I showed you earlier. So I showed within these factors, we have these knowledge dispositions and teacher attitudes, which were codes that were established down here. So we have knowledge dispositions and attitudes. So those were themes that I identified in this table. And then here they are again in this manuscript. The next kind of category was professional support. So I have collaborative partnerships, administrative support, collegial support, and job fit. Again, these are codes that I identified. So you have collaborative partnerships, collegial support, administrative support, and then job fit. So I do want to point out, even though seeing that only one article, the Player et al., only had, this was the only article that cited it, we included this because this Player et al. Had such a big sample. So they had like over 1,000 teachers that were in here. So that's why we included that. But again, I just wanted to show you that these larger categories that I established were because they were straight from this open coding document that I had. So I just wanted to show you how your literature review, it goes from this matrix of you really doing this deep dive in the literature to really see what exists within your topic of interest, then looking at those key findings or really identifying those themes to be able to actually narrow down what you're looking at in terms of what are the commonalities between the body of literature, and then being able to then go into your actual literature review and then talk about those themes more in depth, utilizing that synthesis from all of those different articles. So I can definitely, I'm more than happy to share this. This is, we submitted this for publication, but I can definitely send this to you if you think that it would be helpful. But I really hope that this was a helpful tool for you to be able to utilize. Again, if there's anything that I can do to help navigate this process with you in more depth, I'd be happy to do that. Just send me an email, whatever is easiest for you. I just want to be as supportive as possible. So hope this was helpful.